Welcome! We did it! Behind me is a tier 15 map with our Wyvern Druid, and we made some massive improvements to the passive tree and spirit skills to have an even smoother clear and just send those bosses packing. Might it be an Abyss overflown map? Breaches, Ritual, the Vile Temple. You got it all covered. And we probably crafted the best Druid Talisman in existence. In this video, we're going to go over the gameplay loop, the changes we've made, and also future plans because I got a few more things I want to try out. Let's jump into a tier 15 map and talk about the gameplay loop. You pounce in, then you devour a corpse for a power charge, instantly have your lightning enchanted attacks, and as you can see, we get the Herald of Thunder going now with Living Lightning. This gives us massive bonus clear, plus we added Armor Break on stunning enemies. So I pretty much pounce and then I rend, and we already have an Armor Break going on. If I get my energy shield depleted anyway because I jump into people, I just devour a corpse and it instantly recharges everything. You have an elite here? No problem. Just kill him. Boom. Eat a corpse. Energy shield back up. Eat another corpse. Energy shield back up. We'll talk about the passives that allow you to do that in a bit. This is pretty much how we can easily clear everything. And due to the Herald of Thunder, us pretty much on Pounce applying shock, we always got it going on. And then we full again. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. There's an elite. Oil breath out. And we can just clear a whole screen with it. To the question, why are we not using Flame Breath? It works, however, I cannot move around with it, unless I use WASD or a controller. Would I use the Flame Breath for map clearing if I could move around with it? Yes, and I'll also show you the support gems for it. Now to the boss rotation, and optimally, you start with a power charge already before you go in. You hit until the stun bar is full. Stun bar full, here. He's primed for stun, he has the yellow orb. I do a Wing Blast, boom, 3 power charges. Now we can just melt him with our Barrage. That's as simple as it goes. You could also do the power charge and then do the flame breath if you wanted to. The Wing Blast stunning is also better than ever now because we put overwhelming presence in for lowered enemy stun threshold. However, there's a second thing you could do, and that would be going for the illusion skill. This is a spirit skill that makes a copy of you as you dodge roll. If that copy dies, you get a power charge. It is a simple way to do it. However, the boss has to kill this illusion, and I do prefer the Wing Blast because I have all the stun buildup nodes. Now, what are some of the big changes we did to skill gems, our passive, and also how do we manage to craft this crazy talisman, and how can you do it too? Our main skill for clearing is still Rend, together with Pounce. We jump in, we simply destroy. The Rend, as it gets then a power charge from Devour, gets another 150% more area of effect, and also another 45% from magnified area too. This really leads for these big swings that hit everything, shock everything, and explode everything, so we can get our Herald of Ash and our Herald of Thunder continuously popping. For this, we have rapid attacks, and we now added Heft. We were playing Elemental Armament before, because we have some elemental damage. However, the biggest portion is the physical damage, and Heft with that 30% is just a given. And then Stun too, because you really want that stun build up. How do you actually get more skill gems for Rend? That's leveling up. That was level 40, 65, and I do believe it must have been 80, and now we're waiting for 95 for the 5th. Then we made some adjustments to Pounce. We're still playing the Fist of War together with the cooldown recovery. That currently we can use the Pounce every 3.23 seconds. What we added is a Holy Descent. Holy Descent creates consecrated ground, which heals me for 5% of my maximum life per second, and curses have reduced effect. The important part is the life regeneration. Why is that? Because in our passive trees, we're playing the node called Zealous Oath. Excess life recovery from regeneration is applied to energy shield. Ergo, if I land, and if I create Holy Descent, then on landing, I already have a ground that on top of my actual regeneration restores our energy shield. Right now, standing around, it's 102 per second. By now, Pounce, we're suddenly sitting at 280. This gets boosted by the thickened arteries next to the Zealous Oath. Regenerate max life per second, and 40% increased regeneration while stationary, plus more regeneration while stationary. Lastly, you get yourself the momentum for that 40% bonus damage. And what I'm currently thinking about with a 5th gem would be Armor Explosion. It sets supported skills trigger an explosion when they fully break an enemy's armor. How would the Pounce now break armor? Well, the Pounce does good damage, and a good portion is physical damage. And we get the Warrior node currently that says Shattering Blow. Break armor on heavy stun an enemy with all our increased stun buildup nodes that we're actually rocking with even more increased stun buildup. and so on. I will also add increased broken armor and generally increased armor for myself to then make sure that my Pounce actually breaks that armor, instantly triggers the explosion, enemies die. That death will then Herald of Ash go outwards. That's obviously the test for the 4.0 Druid, so already like a little future music. Now, since Holy Descent works so good on Pounce, it's also added to the Devour, because if we're now jumping in and we're eating that corpse, Devour gives us 239 life per second bonus, which instantly jumps up from this 102 together with the Holy Descent from the Pounce to 280, and then the Devour is giving us another 300x that also gets multiplied out with the stationary, and suddenly per second we're restoring 1500 energy shield. I just instantly get my energy shield back. On top, Devour has rapid attacks to happen as fast as possible, and Fist of War because it's still an ancestrally boosted skill that actually does do damage, so why would we not have it do more damage in an area? Now, since we want all our enemies to be shocked so we get the Herald of Thunder, we could technically think about putting Empowered Sparks on. Generating a power charge with supported skills empowers 3 attacks, and those attacks will then have sparks going out. And with these sparks, we could then shock enemies more often than not to then have our Herald of Thunder work even better. Kind of like a why not or just do more thingy. That's worth a greater Jeweler's Orb for me. Now to the Earl Barrage, because it's actually sitting at 5 skills already, and we get it up to quite some damage, which obviously gets then still empowered to go even crazier. Currently, we play Burgeon for that 40% bonus after 2 seconds of channeling, and against bosses, you always channel for like 4 or 5 seconds and they're dead, so it works. Then we got Projectile Acceleration. This has the spit actually fly faster, arrive quicker, and every change to projectile speed gives us more damage as well. That's 40% more multiplier. Sadly, we have no other projectile speed nodes in here, but 40% is 40%, together with rapid attacks that we can really spit it out fast, and then Rage Forged, because we're always fully raged up since we are playing the Eternal Rage. We're just there, right? We have the full rage, so if we breath, we might as well use 10 of those. Lastly, I put on Magnified Area that the impact is a bit better. However, you do not need to play this. You could also just use another damage stack, like Elemental Armament, because you actually do a huge portion of elemental damage, or Heft for even more physical portion. Then we get our Wing Blast for stunning those bosses and getting the power charges with rapid attacks, Impact Shockwave, as we're always heavy standing them for bonus damage boops, and you might actually add Armor Explosion, because we use this to stun. Our stuns do break armor, which means we can also do bonus damage from simply breaking armor. This brings us to our Flame Breath. And again, if you're using this on mouse to click, I can summon it and I can spew it out forever. If I then want to move, I can click in one direction and it brings me down. If I click instantly on going up, I can travel to the side of my screen, but I can't change direction anymore. If you use WASD controller, you can use it everywhere. To zoom around, you won't have mobility. That's less movement speed penalty when using this skill. Then rapid attacks to spew it out faster, together with Elemental Armament and Fiery Death. Enemies ignited by the skill have a chance to explode. That explosion will then trigger the Herald of Ash again, and that will then trigger the Herald of Ash again, and kind of nicely propagates the damage around the map. But again, I currently can't use it until they have fixed it. However, I already want to give you the tools, as the damage is massive, the damage is there. We have it already up very nicely, and we can still put on a 5th support to then slap another damaging skill on. This brings us now to the Herald of Thunder on the Living Lightning to spread cheer and shock even faster, and Concentrated Area, as we don't need the area of effect for this, we just need the buff to then destroy everyone nice and efficient. Now, interestingly enough, to the Herald of Thunder, you can also add the Armor Explosion, because if the buff from the Herald of Thunder goes outward, staggers someone, that one gets their armor broken, they would also trigger an explosion that would then trigger again the Herald of Ash. It will work nicely on me shifting around a few more points to make the breakage possible. Right now we're clearing tier 15 maps though without it. Then we added the Overwhelming Presence, which could be the Lingering Illusion. However, I was on my 4th ascension with level 80, which was a bit too early, and I had problems stunning Xerog the Temporal, because my stun was just not enough. Therefore, I thought, maybe it's Overwhelming Presence time. However, could also be that Lingering Illusion for the power charge guaranteed on dodging. I did also manage to pick up a chest with Spirit, which brings me to a grand total of 270 Spirit right now with a Shaman Ascendancy. This allowed me to add Vitality 2 for even more life regeneration, that my energy shield comes just back up, back up, back up. Very good. Precision to always hit our hits, cannibalism to get life back on killing enemies, plus then the magnified area on our Herald of Ash with a prolonged duration for longer ignite. Now you might have seen in the gameplay how our Wyvern is attacking extremely fast, faster than usual, and that's because of that best node I mentioned earlier. I personally don't know how I missed it, but everyone needs to take this. We're still starting at the bottom right, we're getting our life regenerations, our attack speeds, and all that stuff. However, up here we get the 20% increased damage and immobilization buildup. At the bottom of this, you have increased attack speed, and then increased attack speed per enemy in close range. Close range in this case is 2 meters. However, we are consistently dive bombing with a Wyvern, and then we end up in 5, 6, 7 enemies, instantly devour with that bonus attack speed, and we're able to just rend out with more attack speed than ever. The viciousness is way too good to ignore. Another thing we did is we put every single stun build-up node, every single node that gives us more stun and has to do with stun, we put on weapon set 1. And then every single node that has to do with channel skills, increased skill speed while channeling, increased damage while channeling, increased damage with channeling, and or increased defense while channeling, right? All of these are weapon set 2 points. So that's the only thing I can mess around with really much, by locking my talisman to both weapon sets, and then having our Barrage on weapon set 2, and our Flame Breath on weapon set 2, while all the other skills are on weapon set 1. Because obviously my Oil Barrage doesn't profit from stunning. I don't need to stun with it. It needs to kill people really quick. Another thing we added at the top is the bonus lightning damage. We gain 8% of damage as extra lightning damage and 8% of damage as extra fire damage, which is an absolute bonus, especially when you're dealing this much as we're dealing. That adds quite nice on top, because our base damage is so high. Our base damage is crazy. And this brings us now down to the bottom of the tree, where we have taken the points on weapon set 1 for the stun build up, and heavy stunning breaks that armor. Now a reason to also go down here was because we needed a few more stat nodes, since it's really hard to get all the dexterity for Herald of Thunder, and you at least want it at level 13, because then it empowers 3 attacks. And if you quality it up, it's actually 5 attacks. Otherwise, it's only 2 attacks, and that's not really good. So level 13 is right now the maximum I can afford, so I'm sitting here at 94 dexterity. Now what I desperately need is these 4 nodes, and currently we are level 84. So either I go up for level 88, or I strike 4 nodes from my current existence that don't do as much damage as I think they would. For example, something as simple as these 4 nodes that currently say enemies you heavy stun while shapeshifted are intimidated. Now intimidation is interesting though, because if I pounce into them and heavy stun them, they will take more damage and they will do less damage to me. That being said, if my pounce already kills everything, especially if the armor break explosions work, the way to go might be moving these out. But I'll keep this up for the 4.0 update, because again, there's bonus things we're planning to do, especially when it comes down to the Ascendancy. We're still playing down here our turning of seasons because of the bonus random element damage and the exposure we do all the time. Plus, we get our Spirit. Now, we did play the Wisdom of the Magi for some bonus effects of our sockets. That wasn't too hot. It was working, but it wasn't crazy. We rather went over to the Elemental Resistance together with Reactive Growth to give us these adaptations that will make us even tankier. And the plan is now to ascend to Force Time and then go over to the Avatar of Evolution to just be the super tank with all the energy shield, life regeneration, everything. Just no problems anymore. What about our gear? What you're looking for, and how did we make this talisman? First, let's talk about the other pieces. We're going for armor and energy shield wherever we can, because armor and energy shield is king. The chest piece does not need spirit. However, if you do get spirit, then you can actually equip easily the Vitality 2, which is pretty great. For our rings and gloves, we're looking for the most amount of flat damage that you can actually get. Any kind of flat damage is welcome. Preferable, you want to have some lightning to really make sure that you get the chalk going. I tried out adding some cold, but the cold doesn't actually do much for you. As we heavy stun always, that means we can't actually freeze. If we wanted to freeze, we need to remove every kind of stunning, but then we're also not getting our power charges against bosses. And now to your talisman. How did we make this bad boy? It was actually simpler than you think it was. We were lucky enough to find a blue talisman that had a very high physical damage bonus percentage. In this case, it was actually 158%. Yep, you heard right. And then the next step is you go into Angie, currency exchange if you don't own it, and ask for an Essence of Abrasion. This will add 35 to 59 maximum physical damage to your two-handed melee weapon. Now, I did actually get 33 to 52, almost the max, and that instantly got us above and beyond. Now, we're not even done with this talisman, because what is missing? That would be currently the perfect Essence of Battle that says two-handed melee weapons or crossbows 5 levels to all attack skills. And that's important. You don't want the bonus levels to melee skills. I've had those before on some of my old talismans. However, those bonus melee skills, they don't actually boost your barrages. Yep, they only boost the Pounce, the Rend, and so on. But you also want your barrage to actually go up. And with those 5 ranks to attack skills, my damage would just multiply up even further. The problem being that the perfect Essence of Battle currently costs 49 Exalted Orbs, and I only have 98. Well, it's too good to say no to. Now, the interesting part about the perfect Essence of Battle is it will replace a suffix. It cannot replace a prefix. That means I will lose the critical hit chance, the critical strike damage bonus, or the reduced attribute requirements. But I don't really care about this. That's 5 more levels. And right now my Rend was at 30,000. Okay, so we're sitting at, yep, that's like on 5 levels. I can shapeshift. Okay, that's 12, 13,000 damage more. My Devour was sitting at 40k. My Flame Breath was before, yeah, that's at 100k Flame Breath now, right? My Oil Barrage was at 14, now is okay, yeah, we're even more nasty now. Now, as future music in the Druid 4.0 update, we'll make that 4th Ascension, we'll kill the Arbiter, we'll make sure that we try out if the Furious Wellspring is worth it, or the adaptations are exactly what we're looking for, and most importantly, I will refine the whole armor explosion process for more chain explosions, that I can hit, the lightning goes out, everything dies, bop, 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 and then it propagates outwards. I'll keep you updated on this. If you have any questions left, ask them in the comments below. I'm going to link you another video for you to watch. Take care.